Saturday, February 20, we were stunned
at the passing of a transformational figure in West Indies cricket.
Antiguan, real son, real spirit of the Caribbean.
Former Vice President of the West Indies Cricket Board, 1999-2001.
James Hesketh Clarvis Joseph, the colorful, charismatic, critical thinker.
Administrator, game changer, serving and leading with cricket in Antigua and Barbuda for 4 decades.
Driving force to relocate Cricket West Indies headquarters from Barbados to Antigua in 1996. Man who meant real development.
Hello, I'm Stratton Palmer.
And I'm Curtis Myrie.
Welcome to Real Chat.
A salute to a man who spoke his mind and not take back no chat.
Here is one of the last, if not the very last, of his interviews. It was done on Real Chat on Thursday, December 17, 2020. He was not mincing words, and as he never does, and this he has lost our way. Okay, we are back with you on Real Chat, and we are deeply honored to have the man himself, Clarvis Joseph. He's a former Vice President of West Indies Cricket Board.
And may I remind you, a man who speaks his mind.
Yes, certainly so, and a man who has graced us with his presence in Jamaica with a lot of good times, and we really treasure those days. Clarvis, welcome.
Hi, how are you, sir?
Good, very good. Clarvis, you must be a broke.
One mind, sir. I can't speak yours.
You must be a broken man when you see where West Indies cricket has gone. You remember coming to Jamaica. You remember the experiences that the world had in Antigua, which almost overtook Barbados as the mecca of West Indies cricket with what went on there. Are you saddened by what has happened to West Indies cricket?
Actually, we have lost our way. We lost our way a long time ago. We were more interested in form than substance. And you're paying the price for that. That is, you have no depth, and there is no the basis, the rhythm of West Indies cricket went out the window a long time ago.
But tell me, Clarvis.
We don't know why we're playing. We just exist.
You know, Richie Richardson, and I keep harping on this, a month or two ago, kept, you know him, so very soberly, he has remarked that we need to return to the culture of West Indies cricket. How do we do that? Is that a whim? Is that a whim
or a way?
We have to understand where we come from in the first instance. Unless we understand where we come from, we're not going any place. And as I said, we're more interested in form and gesturing than we're interested in results and performance. In other words, we have a lot of certificated people. I'm not certain that they're certified to do anything. And that's the problem. In other words, certificates have rule knowledge. And we all know that in any education system, certification is only one part of the manifestation.
Of course it is.
It cannot be all and end all.
And I'll tell you
some
this.
fundamental problems at the top. I don't know if the West Indies Cricket Board know where they want to go.
Even the present cricket board?
They don't know where they want to go. I don't think they understand the roots of West Indies cricket either. As a matter of fact, I don't think they understand the roots of West Indian behavior. So we don't play cricket with any rhythm. We don't have any reason to play. We get paid, full stop. And so the people who run the cricket don't run it out of a love of the game or don't run it out of a cause, a developmental cause. They run it for the money that they can make out of it. And that's an ethic that has been set since.
Are you saying, Clarvis, that the administrators are making money out of the game?
Well, I used to be on the West Indies Cricket Board for a number of years. And we did it out in the love of that. No fellas getting paid to be members of the board. I never know about that yet. So maybe all along it, the money is what has taken over.
Both with players and administration.
So once you start dealing who's making money out of what, you're not getting any results. Because there's no passion. And Caribbean behavior. Rooted in passion, and we have no passion. So whether we lose or win, we die or we live is totally irrelevant. We got paid.
A point was made the other day about the players now and their approach. And yes, the whole issue of livelihood is sacrosanct. Okay, well, fine. But because of the leagues of the world and all that is waved like a dangling carrot, the point was made that we take that seriously, and whenever it is we need to represent the West Indies, it's really like a vacation away from the job. How do you see that?
It goes back to my point that I made a while ago. That we don't know why we are doing what we are doing.
Exactly.
And once you don't have any reason for existing, anything goes. Now, they talk about money and leagues, etc. You cannot be an Indian cricketer and just get up and play for who you want to play for. You cannot be an English cricketer and play for who you want to play for, when you choose to, where you choose to, how you choose to. You cannot be an Australian cricketer and do the same thing, because in those cricket boards there's discipline and there's reason for existence. We don't have any. And don't blame the players. Players will conform. Players like children, they will conform to whatever ethic is set up in the home.
Yeah. Is it about the cricketers though? Because if you look at the public, they will chastise you if you ever mention that these players are mercenaries. Yeah?
Stop a while. It is your house. You decide how you run it. The minute your children, the tail start to run the head, lock down the house and go about your business.
but I was saying, Travis, that they will tell you that the players have to eat a food, as we say in Jamaica.
So everybody becomes flat.
Hold on. Every parent have to put food on the table. No, you're going to child because of that.
Thank you, Clarvis. Thank you.
You're going to sell your girl child because of that. What damn nonsense is that?
Well, that's where we are.
That's exactly where we are, Stratton. And Stratton is right, you know, because it's actually it's a view. It's a nonsensical view, but it's a view. Man have to eat a food.
That's an excuse for not making a decision. That's an excuse for not setting up a system.
So it comes back to the board.
That's an excuse for not managing the activity to which you are charged.
Well, you have put the cats among the pigeon. Really, a lot of discussions about
and
the
so
point you
everybody
made.
needs to lock down because them not have no reason for existing.
Should we
make money out of the deal?
Let me make this point that very few persons really want to raise. In having a serious look at how we are floundering, should we be moving away from test matches for a while to see how we may regroup and regain ground?
No. We're not going anywhere. We're not moving away from nothing towards nothing. We don't have any reason for existing. What your program name? Real Chat?
Real Chat.
Chat your chat.
Well, it's Real Chat, but for instance, you can't blame the players because the players, like all children, will conform to whatever system is established. So Andrew Russell can know that he can choose to do this and choose to do that and choose to do the rest. And damn the consequences.
Even at the expense of not going to the doctors for his treatment.
There is no consequences to anything because from board right down everybody, if you don't have any ethic established, if you don't have any principle established, then experience is the only thing that rules the day. And we are running an international game on the basis of expediency, not on principle.
Well, Sir Clarvis, your voice is heard, and as usual, you have spoken it as you always does. You're not afraid to put your points out there. It's food for thought, and many people will be ruminating on what you just said to us. We'd like to thank you very much for joining us on the program today.
And I'll tell you this, it's not just being Clarvis. It's how we really become conscious of our feelings. And we really need to be taking seriously what folks like Clarvis are saying, because we really need to have a proper look in the mirror. Thanks, Clarvis. And
okay, no problem, man, anytime.
All right, my brother, good.
Do not consult me about things that you know is going to be controversial. What must happen is that they must first understand Caribbean people and Caribbean behavior before you can run a Caribbean institution.
Righto.
All righto.
And I'm certain that the people who run in West Indies cricket have one clue about what a Caribbean institution should or should not look like.
All right,
and until you solve that issue, you have nowhere to go. Take your blow and go about your business. You get paid.
Thanks again.
All right, Clarvis.
Right.
We will be back. It has been... We are not here to bury him, simply here to honor him. Man through policy who helped to fashion the full development of cricketers right across the region.
It's quite a legacy, and the first man at the crease is Sir Lester Bird, national hero, the second Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, 1994 to 2004, man who celebrated his 83rd birthday Sunday last, February 21st.
A youth cricketer for the Leeward Islands, he was the 1959 long jump bronze medalist at the Pan Am Games in Chicago, competing for the British West Indies. Welcome, Sir Lester Bird. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me on.
So, Lester, your performances precede you, because little did we know that of your athletic prowess. Yes, we know about cricket in the West Indies. That is our passion. But outside of Jamaica, Wint, Roden, McKinley, etc., how did we come about finding out about Sir Lester Bird at the Pan Am Games winning a bronze medalist? Quite a feat. How was it as a youngster for you in terms of athletics, Sir Lester?
Well, I was attending the University of Michigan. I won a scholarship there to perform for the track and field team. I was in my dorm at the University of Michigan when there was a rap under the door, and a letter was handed to me, and it came from Herb McKinley.
Oh.
And Herb McKinley gave me a ticket to come to Jamaica to attend the games. But I was already in 1959. I won the championship in Guyana for the long jump. And that long jump took me to the West Indies federal team. And that's the team that went to Chicago. I think the British West Indies finished third. We had a lot of great runners, great athletes there for the Caribbean. But in that time, we were still a federal unit. And I represented Antigua, and I represented the Caribbean in Chicago at the Pan Am Games. And I won the bronze medal in that games.
Tell me this. There was cricket that you played, and there was the long jump. You had a preference for one over the other? You love them both?
That's a very good question. I love them both, but I loved my cricket almost exponentially because I played cricket for my school. I played grammar school. I played cricket for Antigua. At the age of 18, I represented Antigua in Montserrat as a fast bowler. So after that, at the same time, conjointly, I went to Jamaica, Savannah Park, and I finished with I think it was the bronze medal or the silver medal. Paul Foreman was won it, and I came second or third. And I was in the team a long time ago for Antigua in the track and field. In the cricket, I was the fast bowler, opening fast bowler for Antigua. I made the Leeward Islands team, and then I won the scholarship to go to Michigan. So I left the Caribbean with the cricket and concentrated on track and field at the University of Michigan.
Let me ask you this, and you're permitted to take all the tales out of school. Here is Clarvis Joseph, a man at the other side of the political divide. You both speak your minds. This I know. How did you find him? How did you find him?
Let me say this to you.
Yes.
Clarvis went to grammar school like I did, and we have a saying, semper firens, always flourishing. But the reality is, when it came to the question of cricket, we eschewed the whole notion of partisan politics.
Right.
Together with Rousseau, he made a great team, and in fact helped to energize cricket in the Caribbean when it began to go down. So I have a lot of respect. I had a lot of respect for Clarvis, and as you know, he was a bright guy. He was intelligent, but he was really a passionate guy when it came to the cricket. And so we have, both him and I, had a meeting point with that, because I was just as passionate about cricket. And I think that he and Rousseau did a hell of a job in trying to keep Caribbean cricket alive.
Sir Lester, it was Sir Frank Worrell who indicated that the future of West Indies cricket lay with the smaller islands. And we saw it coming to pass in the sense that we saw Antigua having a production line of world-class players. What happened during that period in Antigua with Viv, Andy? You talk about the two Benjamins, Curtly Ambrose, Richie Richardson. What happened in Antigua?
What happened is, you know of a guy named Tim Hector?
Yes.
You ever heard of?
Yes.
You ever heard of Tim Hector?
We have.
Tim and I got together, and we decided that we had to revamp the Antiguan team. And the reality is that we did so. And of course, there was this young guy at the grammar school by the name of Isaac Vivian Richards, and he had tremendous talent. What happened is Tim and I decided that we in fact, the team that was put together for Antigua was not doing well, and we took about 9 or 10 of the guys out of the team, and we brought in a lot of young fellas, Vivian Richards and several others, and then from there we won the championship, and from there we went on to decide we're going to recruit some young fellas, and along came Winston Benjamin, and even the other Benjamin,
Kenny.
which caused
Kenny Benjamin.
Kenny Benjamin, he caused a contretemps in the West Indies cricket, in that when we were getting ready to play South Africa again, the Barbados team boycotted Kenneth Benjamin. Can you believe that? He boycotted Kenneth Benjamin, and so he was picked on it because he was picked on the team. And the reality is, though, in Antigua, cricket has always been a passion, even when I was a youngster. But even latterly at that time, we had tremendous interest in cricket. Tim Hector, myself, and along came Clarvis Joseph. Clarvis Joseph was very keen, and although we are on different political sides, we were able to conjoin together and to be able to say, look, we got to get Antigua cricket at the top, and we did. We got Viv Richards, we got Andy Roberts, we got several other cricketers who might have made the team. And so that's how we began to meet together, and that's how I made sure that I didn't allow politics to interfere in the relationship between myself and, because we did not wish to make that have anything to do with destroying the passion for cricket in Antigua, the potential for cricket in Antigua. And so we moved on and picked a lot of young fellas, of whom Billy Richards was the standout.
You both planned, schemed even, to move the headquarters of West Indies cricket from Barbados to Antigua. The West Indies wanted a number of duty-free stuff and other benefits that I'm told Barbados wasn't willing to give at that time. How did both of you, I can just imagine you and Clarvis,
To use this word, conjoined.
conjoin, collaborating to really get the headquarters over to Antigua?
Well, I don't think that we set out initially to do so, because I don't want the notion to go around that we were trying to against another Caribbean team.
No.
Of course, Barbados was the center. Barbados had all the great cricketers. So Frank Warrell came before. So we didn't really start out in a posture of seeking to deprive Barbados of its headquarters.
Right.
But then he died recently. The then Prime Minister was not disposed to give in the concessions, and you mentioned it a while ago.
Right.
He was not prepared to give it. And Clarvis and I got together and said, look, we can bring this thing to Antigua, you see. And here's what we must do. We must give the concession. I am the Prime Minister. I will give the concessions. I will give them the headquarters of the government. There was a greenhouse. Everybody knows who was alive then. And I took that property, which was the headquarters of the government of Antigua and Barbuda, and Clarvis and I decided we were going to offer that also as a bonus. We gave them the building, and I think they still have the building up to now. The reality is we worked together, and I want to say that on behalf of the people of Antigua and Barbuda, and on behalf of myself, I wish to say to you, Clarvis was indicative of the new kind of Caribbean man that we needed, and we got. And he made a tremendous contribution, and I wish to give his family and everyone else conjoined with him the best of my recognition.
You spoke earlier about Sir Frank coming into the picture, and we know that was what that was about, becoming the first black, first long-term black captain in the West Indies. But thereafter, what was that time like? And if you want, you could join with it, the question of insularity, as to how we can overcome that even today.
Well, that was really the quintessence of what me and Tim and John are also trying to do. The whole notion that in the bigger islands, that was the phrase, bigger islands, they determined, and the people who represented the West Indies board, people like Marley, of Jamaica, just on mile Trinidad. The reality is they were not. They decided that they were going to keep the thing in the higher level of the Big Islands. But then we decided what an incident. Let me give you a little anecdote.
Yes.
There was a test match in Barbados, and Kanai was the captain. And the reality is, Kanai did not like the small islanders, and so Tim and I and Joe Solomon, believe it or not,
From Guyana.
of Barbados, Guyana, he wanted to go on the West Indies trip to India. So Keith Walcott and myself decided, together with Clarvis, that we were going to dangle in front of him the possibility of going. He agreed that we would do that. He joined with us, and I want to tell you, it was at that time that a decision was made to remove Kanai, because Kanai in a test match in Barbados, Shovers was acting at the time, and Kanai went off the field, and when he came back, he dragged the ball out of Shovers' hand, and the Bajans never forgave him for that. So the reality is that was where we got together, the former president of the West Indies board, and I, and Clarvis, and Keith Walcott, and we all got together and decided when the vote came up to determine the captaincy to go to India, we would all vote against Kanai. So said, so done, and we picked Clive Lloyd to be the captain. And so that's just an anecdote of what happened in West Indies cricket.
Sorry, Curtis, after. For history's sake, because it has been going around for some time that Clive Lloyd was almost forced into the position of captain by Burnham.
Nonsense. It wasn't a political decision.
Yeah. All right.
It was a decision made at the West Indies board.
Okay.
And the one incident, the one aspect of it, which I think history must show, is that the four of us that I just mentioned on the tree, we decided that we were going to object to Derek, what the wicketkeeper's name again?
Derek Myrie.
Derek Murray's father was on the board representing Trinidad. And we said he had to recuse himself when the decision was made who would be the next captain.
All right. Listen,
Strategy.
anecdotes and all, we could spend all evening. Because, and as I mentioned at the very outset, yes, you're permitted to take tales out of school. But this final question, which I must ask, because you made reference to it, about the Caribbean man and the Caribbean identity, right?
Yep.
That was Clarvis Joseph. Let me ask you this. Is that man, is that identity now in retreat? Are we at a stage where we are realizing more of this identity for the benefit of West Indies cricket? Or it is, as I said before, in retreat, which must now cause us some concern and worry?
I think there should be some deep concern about it, because the reality is, you are so right, that there's a decline in that West Indianness and that Caribbeanness, and there's a need to resuscitate it. And I think that my Prime Minister here, Gaston Brown, has done a lot to help to resurrect it. Take, for instance, Liat, the pilot. There's a lot right for St. Vincent and Barbados to seek to take it away from Antigua as something that they desire for their country. We must maintain the unity and the comity and the empathy that is so required for Caribbean-ness. Like when I was on the track team to Chicago representing it, I felt so proud that there were so many outstanding, Marlon Mel Spence and George Carr and Ernie Hazley and Paul Foreman and all of us. We had a kind of unity together. That's why we did so well. And there's a diminishing period of this, because I see Barbados takes the attitude about Liat and and so on. We need to get away from that. We need to go back to what happened with the great leaders, V.C. Bird, Bradshaw, all those leaders, Eric Williams, all those leaders who have to create a Caribbean empathy. We need to go back to that. And then you're quite right. It is diminishing. And after we have defeated the whole notion of small island cricket, in which Warren helped to remove the notion and said that the best cricketers were going to come from the Leeward Islands, etc. We got over that in cricket. And cricket is, as you know, the glue that keeps the Caribbean together. And we need to go back to that. And maybe that's why our cricket diminished so much. But then we got some great, outstanding cricketers. And we are in search of looking for a lot of others who will again bring the Caribbean cricket together.
We could talk to you all afternoon, Sir Lester, but we got to go. And I'm very thankful for engaging you, because as Clarvis said in that interview, in that last interview, this is how we have lost our way. And I am sure his legacy, as you are addressing it, as you are stating the pros and cons of it, we have to get back this unity, this commonality.
Yes.
Right? It's the only way we will find our way again.
We all have to go to Valhalla. And Clarvis is on his way there. But the reality is we got to go back to that empathy and that understanding of what Caribbeanness means from the great leaders that led us into federation. Unfortunately, that diminished, but we came back again, and CARICOM and the leaders, Burnham and V.C. Bird and Bradshaw and all those fellows came back together. And I remember a meeting. I got to go. I know you got to go, but I remember the meeting in Ocho Rios when, after Eric Williams had died and decided he wasn't attending any meetings for 7 years. After that, we met there, and that was when Morris Bishop, and I don't want to go on, but I could tell you stories that will really intrigue you. But thank you very much.
We must engage at another time.
At another time, yeah,
but
indeed.
we really, really appreciate that you took the time to be with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me on your program, and I look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Okay. We take
What
a break.
a start.
What a start.
What an opening inning.
Yes.
We'll be right back. Stratton, we could still be talking to
Sir Lester.
Sir Lester, but there's so many stories. There's so many stories. We have someone strolling to the crease for yet another interesting inning.
Could you call him the one-down batsman?
We could call him the one-down batsman. Here is former junior minister in the Nevis Island administration and the former director of the West Indies Cricket Board, Carlisle Powell. The legacy of Clarvis Joseph. Tell us about it.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon to you.
First of all, I met Clarvis upwards of 30 years ago.
Yes.
And Clarvis is in the line of some very outstanding presidents that the Antigua Cricket Association produced. Those include people like Sidney Christian and Ken Isaac and so on. And Clarvis was very well organized. When you attended board meetings that he was in charge of, and at one point he was the president of the Antigua Cricket Association before becoming the president of the Leeward Islands Cricket Association.
That's right.
And that was at a time when Antigua were our representative in terms of hosting test matches in the Leewards. That was long before St. Kitts had an international venue. And so Clarvis was there representing the Leewards as host of the test venue. And he was very, very well organized. He had this kind of raspy voice which made you pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
When you heard Clarvis, you knew that was Clarvis and that he was in charge.
A lot of timber.
Yes.
A lot of timber, beg your pardon, right?
Yes, definitely.
Bellowing from the diaphragm.
Definitely. Listen, Clarvis, when we were in the boardroom, he was very well organized, knew what he wanted to do, what he wanted to achieve for Leewards and West Indies cricket. And more than that, he involved the people around the table. So he wanted to hear what your opinion was on subjects. But not just wanted to hear, he allowed you to speak. Whether he agreed or disagreed with you, he allowed you to have your say. Mm-hmm. And then he tried to guide you towards where he wanted you to be in the discussions. Mm-hmm. When I first sat at the West Indies Cricket Board level, that was maybe around the year 2000. Clarvis was there as the vice president to the late Patrick Russo.
Yes.
And together, they formed an excellent team. You could say that they were not just working together as president and vice president, but that they shared the same goals for West Indies cricket. And a lot of people don't give them the kind of credit that they deserve for helping the West Indies to gain World Cup in 2007. This didn't start in 2007. It started with people like Pat Rosso, who were able, and Clarvis, who were able to guide the bit of the West Indies through. And for us people in the Caribbean to dare to think that we can host a World Cup, Clarvis and Pat Rosso, they never budged. They felt that we had the quality of cricket. We had won World Cups before, and it was time for the people of the Caribbean to see a World Cup being played on our own pitches here in the Caribbean. And they made it happen. They deserve a tremendous amount of credit for something like that. Both brilliant gentlemen, excellent cricket administrators, and it was my pleasure to serve with them.
Mm-hmm. Carlisle, the fact that both were businessmen, did this tend to give a different complexion to the board and to West Indies Cricket Administration?
Absolutely. Business people understand money. and so Clarvis and Pat understood that it would take money to run the game. And I think this is one of the reasons why we were able to, well, Pat and Clarvis brought on, for example, somebody like Chris Deering,
right,
in charge of marketing. And they were able to land that very lucrative Sky deal for West Indies cricket, which brought much needed money. They understood that cricket is not just played out there on the field with some men with a red ball in those days, mostly red ball, and white clothes. But that cricket must be played off the field, and it takes money to run the game. And your question is very pertinent. They understood as business people what money could do. And so they were able to, in my mind, make the first major revolution and transformation of our game by bringing in a fairly large influx of new money.
How much of a setback has it been? The fact that both himself and Pat Rousseau had to resign. How is that setback West Indies cricket from the trajectory, from a business perspective, that those men were aiming at?
Well, it did, because even though we moved to other businessmen, other successful businessmen in, say, for example, President Teddy Griffiths and President Ken Gordon, the vision that Pat and Clarvis had, they were not allowed to take it to its fruition.
Let me butt in and ask very bluntly, did it set back our cricket?
It did. It did. Because their vision and where they wanted to go and the kind of plans that they had, it took us some time to settle down, and I'm not even sure if we fully recovered. But what your listeners must understand, that these were gentlemen of principle. In that, the West Indies Cricket Board reversed a decision that had been taken by President Pat Rousseau and his Vice President Clarvis Joseph. The board did not buy into that decision, and as a result of that, on principle, both gentlemen resigned.
And you were at that meeting?
I was at that meeting, and I remember it was sad for us, for me in particular. At the end of the meeting, Pat Rousseau, who I was a very young, much younger man at that time. And at the end of the meeting, Pat Rousseau, he picked a number of us. And he said, listen, I want to take you guys to dinner so that I can share what my vision for West Indies cricket was and is and will remain. And we sat and we had dinner, but not just the dinner, we chatted for hours. We chatted for a couple of hours, because he didn't want to just resign and walk away. Mm-hmm. His heart was still with West Indies cricket. And so he shared that vision with a number of us, himself and Clarvis. And I will always remember the late Pat Rousseau. Brilliant mind, sharp legal and business mind, and a man of great principle. And the same with Clarvis.
What did you take away from that meeting?
Well, first of all, if you believe that you have done something which is right, and the other people don't buy into your decision, even after much discussions, on principle, maybe it is time for you to part ways. I look back at that and I ask the question, how many other presidents would have done the same thing that Pat Rousseau did and be followed by his vice president? He believed strongly at the time that the decision, and it had to do with an employee of the board. Pat Rousseau decided, listen, we wanted to continue evolving until we got things right. And he wasn't sure that we had the right people at that time in the right places. But the board didn't buy that. And so the board decided that they would reverse the decision. Mm-hmm. The principle of the men came to the front. That they said, if that is the case, then it is time for us to go.
I want to ask you this, Carlisle. I want to ask you this. We have been hearing over the years of cricket plans and cricket plans and cricket plans. What was Clarvis's cricket plan? You said that himself and Rousseau it was a union sharing objectives and goals. What was the cricket plan like? Because you just mentioned they wanted the game to be evolving. What was the cricket plan like? And are we still following it, or it has been dashed? It has
Jettisoned.
yes, jettisoned, and it has simply left the field and left the pavilion. What was the cricket plan?
First of all, Clarvis and Pat thought that we were paying players and paying people in the organization, but that we did not at that time have, quote unquote, a professional setup, neither on the field nor off the field. And so they decided that they wanted the West Indies game and the West Indies players to become a lot more professional. And so they wanted the professional setup not just with players on the field, but they wanted the academy so that they could feed into the test team. They wanted to ensure that the setup of the team itself was much more professional. So they wanted everybody with formal contracts, and those people must be accountable to the West Indies people, not just the West Indies Cricket Board, but the West Indies people. They wanted to ensure that the organization itself, at that time, West Indies Cricket Board, had a more professional outlook, a more professional operation than it did. And that is what I would remember them most for, introducing a more professional setup to West Indies cricket. And you asked the question if that has continued. We have had so many hiccups. We have had so many missteps that every now and again you have to wonder if the people who conceptualized the idea and decided to bring it into fruition, if they had stayed around longer to guide it, it would have been different.
Wow. You are from Nevis, eh?
That is correct.
How much of what Carlisle proposed would have increased the kind of development that you would want to see in the cricket of the Leeward Islands? Because looking at it now, they are not doing as well, and people are wondering, why are they not producing? Remember, the Leewards, they were presenting cricketers of world repute, almost like a production line, as we said to Sir Lester.
Right, right. What happened?
Well, part of the challenge that we have had here in the Leewards is that we have not had a regular Leeward Islands 3-day competition for upwards of 5 years. And this is before COVID, so you can't blame COVID for that. Our last tournaments have been limited overs competitions. You cannot produce a 4-day team from playing 1-day cricket. And then again, even with our 1-day setup, we have not had a consistently quality 1-day competition which would allow us to perform and compete at the regional level. But even so, you have to look at the setup that we have in the Leewards. Some people have been asking the question whether it has been the best thing for us to play essentially our contracted players who are contracted for the longer form of the game in what is essentially a 1-day, the surgical 1-day tournament. That, to me, is not working, will not work, and will always give us some problems. We at the Leewards board are going to have to do a major rethink at the way that we are doing cricket here in the islands. Take, for example, we have a setup where you have membership coming from Antigua and Barbuda, Montserrat, St. Martin, Anguilla, U.S. Virgin Islands, British Virgin Islands, St. Kitts and Nevis. But in some of those member territories, we have had no cricket for an extremely long period of time.
Right.
How can you not have a competition at the Leewards level, not have competitions at the local level, but expect to contribute players to a setup where they are competing with people who are playing cricket on a regular basis.
Is it just
Not that easy.
is it just administration, or it's being affected by sponsorship?
Both administration and sponsorship. But sponsorship should not stop you from playing cricket.
But
I'll give you an
Carlisle,
example.
we could very well say that one begets the
Other
other.
too.
If you have good administrators, they'll find the sponsorship based on what they present.
I totally agree with you. I took over the Navy's Cricket Association presidency last year, February. We had absolutely no sponsors, but we put on a T20 competition which involved 8 teams and a total of 36 matches without a sponsor. But having had that competition, we attracted the National Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis to sponsor our next competition, which is a T10 competition. And we're already talking to sponsors who witnessed the T20 competition and want to come on board for that T20 competition later on in the year. You have to start someplace, and even if you start without sponsors, if your organization is good, your quality of cricket is good, you are likely to attract sponsors to come.
Let me ask you this before I have Stratton coming at you from the other end. When we spoke to Sir Lester, he mentioned that this production line that Stratton spoke about, this Antiguan search, was brought about from the investment in your young players, right? It was a decision to say, let's go engage the youth. Is this still what is being pursued? And not just in that territory, but where the West Indies, general West Indies platform. How are we really engaging our young?
Well, you have 2 challenges. First of all, our under-19 cricketers are not playing Sweden matches. How do you produce players for the test team from your under-19s and your under-21s if they are not playing the longer form of the game? We have to engage those players and try to keep them in the region, because a number of those players who go abroad to fine-tune their game in England, for example, end up playing for English counties and England itself. And you just have to look at Chris Jordans and so on. Now, in order for you to do that, first of all, you have to have a good setup at home. And the guys have to feel as if they will make a difference. They will get included in the various teams when they play at home. And I give you one classic example. Tyrone Powell is my son.
Okay.
We sent him off to boarding school in England when he was just 14 years old. But he knew at that time that he wanted to play cricket as a professional. That is all he wanted to do. So he knew he was going out there to play cricket, fine-tune his skills, but that he wanted to play for West Indies and not for England. And so he came back to the West Indies, got into the leeward side at an early age, and then made it on to various West Indies teams. How do we get our players to sharpen their skills, knowing that very few of them are getting involved in county cricket, knowing that at the West Indies our academies only seem to function for a certain period of time and then falter? And then how do we get them to understand that they can be selected in their regional sides if they are good enough when they are young? That is the first thing that we're going to have to do. If players are good enough at a young age, they ought to be considered and selected. I do not like to hear people say, he's young, he's only 17, he has his whole future in front of him. India did not say that to Tendulkar.
But you must be aggrieved by the fact that following that drama there, that your son would have had a healthy season last season was overlooked.
These things happen. You have to look, and it is unfortunate. And it was no fault of his that he was not given a test for a whole year after he failed the test. But it speaks to strength of character. Even in the face of adversity, you must be able to say, listen, man, I'm going to go and I'm going to repeat what I did.
One final question for you. With the legacy of Clarvis, with your own concerns about West Indies cricket and how we engage our young, are you hopeful that we are heading towards a renewal? There is what just took place in Bangladesh. Are you hopeful that we might again be getting there? And what has to be done if we remember the administrative skills and pursuits of Clarvis? What else needs to be done?
Two things. First of all, we must, if we intend for the West Indies team to re-emerge and reinvent itself as a team that can compete on the international stage, one, we're going to have to ensure that we have good player relations. Player relations with the board. I am firm in my opinion that the squabbles that we had many years ago with the Players Association harmed both the Players Association and West Indies Cricket Board and West Indies Cricket. We perform better, we do better when we have good relations with our players. Just look back to that before our first tour of South Africa. And you saw the fiasco that happened there when we had those challenges and the various challenges which occurred after that. So it is important that we have excellent player relations and that we keep the channels of communications wide open. The second thing that we're going to have to do in the Caribbean, now that we have professional setups and you have the franchise teams throughout, we are going to have to produce pitches which encourage good cricket. Our pitches have become such that spin bowlers, our slow bowlers, are our main wicket takers. But here is the challenge. That does not necessarily give us high quality spinners, because when we pit them against international teams, sometimes they look pretty ordinary. And so we're going to have to produce pitches which are not just slow and low and conducive to spin bowlers getting wickets, but are better for our batting, better for good bowling, better for good cricket. And once we can do something like that, you would find that the confidence of the cricketers would become greater.
Okay, so
you
Carla,
would find
yes?
that our players would develop a greater mental strength. And what happened in Bangladesh was not just that the cricket itself was better than Bangladesh physically, but those guys showed great mental strength as well.
Yes.
To leave the Caribbean during COVID, to leave the Caribbean hearing everybody saying that this is a third-rate team.
Yes.
They did not believe that they were a third-rate team, and that is why they gave us first-rate performances in Bangladesh.
All right, Carlisle, we have to leave it there, but it seems as if we have to invoke the spirit of Carlisle once again.
Yeah.
My pleasure talking to you, gentlemen.
Thank you ever so much.
Good.
Take care.
Yes. Share, subscribe, and contribute to the Cash App $ Real Chat that's on your screen. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Real Chat, and there's still more.
Still more.
Still more to share about Clarvis Joseph, but that is later on in the program.
Right.
We shall be hearing from his best friend, Pedro Corbin, who will have the final word, right?
Right, too.
But there are other issues that concern us. As always, crime. That's at the forefront and center of things. It could have gone unnoticed, glossing over it and moving right along. Since we have developed a culture of indifference from our horrifying crime rate, it's something, however, to be carefully considered. According to Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang, in a recent report, there are several high schools. Let me say this again. There are several high schools in neglected communities across the island that are literally serving as factories for gunmen and tributaries for prisons, which must be front and center of any solution to the crime problem. The minister pointed to the results of a 2012 prison survey, which revealed that 20 schools had a very high recurrence rate of incarcerated individuals. The minister, I need to say it again, the minister pointed to the results of a 2012 prison survey, which revealed that 20 schools had a very high recurrence rate of incarcerated individuals. And he noted that these communities needed more than charity. They needed opportunity, which meant critical government investment. And I hope he's taking himself seriously. We are talking about replacement gangsters here and schools that are like nurseries. And you simply can't close your eyes, not turn your backs, or you would continue to be doing that at your peril. Here is Dwight Spence, once again, Peace Management Initiative advocate, who at age 11, yes, age 11, was taking his gun to school. We are so thankful to the Lord for his transformation.
Yes.
And the part that he's now playing to engage others to put their guns down. Thanks again for being on the program, Dwight Spence. How are you?
I'm fine. It's my pleasure to be here with you again,
Right.
And it is God's will too.
Okay. So it is.
Yes.
When you was taking your gun to school, what was that whole scenario like?
All right. To be honest with you, as I say, at those age we never have no guidance, and that was the only option in our space, especially when it comes towards preventing yourself from other people to get you to be a claustrophobia or to be a fear of them in terms. You understand? So you want to be the one that can stand up to defend your family or to defend your own self. So that is one of the main purpose of me gaining guns. Even though my regime, as I tell you, say, my uncle was a done in my space, so that even makes things more difficult for me not get myself with something, because I want to be out there, even though it bombard me. You understand? But I know that I have to exercise myself to go out there to try achieve an education or a skill. You understand? But it's just the circumstances. You understand? Which me just have to do what I have to do to survive.
Mm-hmm. So you felt that if you didn't carry go school, you may not come back home alive. That's what you're saying?
May not. Yes, definitely. That's exactly what I'm trying to convey across to you.
So nobody never knows say you're going in your school bag?
I'll be honest to you, right now, with I'm here now, I'm right side of a teacher too, which could tell you that when me I come to school in Bath, ambassador theater. It's supposed to be a theater with residing Trenchtown. And I think everybody's supposed to know that theater by now. I
Yes,
think
man.
You got your bus.
so. We will learn our art. You understand? Leathercraft and all these things. And every day I used to carry my gun come to school at there. And before I reach bus stage, you understand? When we used to go Operation Friendship at Bell Road at Art. You understand? I used to carry my gun, and there's this gentleman sitting below me now could tell you that I testify to that. Say, yo, me disengage a 45 and tell him to sit it up back. And he was like, you man, you got dead by that, Go on with that from out of the class. You understand? But I was never a claustrophobic at the moment. I was feel so superior in a way where the gun make me feel like I have the power there where I'm not even afraid of even police at the moment. You understand me? Yeah.
So what, the gun empowers you that you don't fear any confrontation or even death?
Definitely. You understand? Definitely, because at the time, I think my family was the target because of the danmanship. You understand? So it's a do or die choice me having on my way. Which that is why I tell you that I'm glad for the social intervention of PMI when them come aboard within Trenchtown.
So when they came and they started talking and engaging folks, you started to listen.
Yes. There was a weekly class, I think, where we meet every week. You understand? And from that now, the weekly class, that was so getting interesting because what it do now, we take me from Rosetown to Denantown to Annatown, all of the town them within the Trenchtown, Denantown, Annatown, all of them town there. So I start to travel with them from bus. You understand? Till now, me will have that influence and some of my friends them, which me I tell you say when I go school with, them I travel with for them thing too. You understand me? When me go school with now, can really follow me. You understand? Yeah, them can follow me if you know say, yo, say I meet this program as I tell you already. It was my family name, Dimi Jed from Rima, who had introduced peace management to me at those time it was named Era Youth Foundation. You understand me?
At what age? At what age was that?
I was at about 11 going to 12.
11, you were introduced to peace management.
Yes, going to 12.
Right.
Oh, you decide to give up your things, though. Because you said you walk with the things because you need to be safe.
Yes.
And you wasn't going to just give up that so easily.
Yes.
And here came along folks who were preaching, put down the things. There's a better way. There's a different way. You never laugh after them when you hear them first.
Yes, well, this is the thing, at the moment you have to understand when we get introduced to PMI, it was not a perpetuating thing. You understand, to me at the moment, because I was so young, naive to certain things. You understand me? Now the experience of these things.
Did you let me ask you, and Shatta may take it from here. Yeah. But did you just take it for protection, or when you go to school, you lord yourself over the other students, you bullied the other students? What were you doing? And how were the other friends with the guns? How were they behaving? Are you not a Kurokang in the school?
Yeah, listen now. I was taking for protection, me and my friend, because as I tell you, at one at a time, when we got
but it's not everybody take it for protection.
No. But I and my friend them bring it because of that, because you have to remember, in Trenchtown where we live, it was all about turf war at the time. You understand me?
So
even
were there turf wars in the school? Did the turf wars spill over in the school?
Yes, because listen, you have the school where we go other people from different parts of the area where my community and them are. You understand? Attending the school. You understand what I say? Even though some of them might not see us like us. You understand me? But they are the ones who bring information back to feed them side of space. You understand?
So the minister is right then. There are schools in troubled communities that are like factories for gunmen then.
Yes, man. Definitely.
Let me take issue with that for a second. Is it really the school or is it the community?
All right. To be honest with you, it's the culture of the community. You know, it's what meeting is what sell to us.
Yes.
Yes. So me can't go
And
blame
so
it on the
therefore, in
school.
going to school, you have to have that protection because there's a
Have to have that
likelihood
protection.
that the
Yes.
other side may invade.
May invade.
Yes, definitely.
Did the
You
school
understand?
do anything to temper that situation? Did you get any talk from guidance counselors or teachers to teach you about the wrongs of carrying a gun or being involved in that sort of activity?
Well, to be honest to you, I never have no guidance in terms of most. I'm gonna tell you straight up. It's just like the teacher them who we know reside within some part of the community. Used to always tell us, brother, me know it kinda tough from phone side. You understand? Sometimes them even cannot tell we have certain thing more than them have to know so we travel with it and usher even for them out themselves. You understand me? Because them know say the situation serious because them living at the space and them see say yo the war is going on. You understand? And them know say gunshot a fire day, night. You understand? Day and night. And them know say we in our space, we have our family them who involved highly. They are guns as I tell you say. You understand? And even some of our friends them. You understand? Who are so-called follower leaders. You understand? Just like me myself put it as because me coming from that Dan man trending. You understand? Me have the influence dead more than anybody else because I lose one of my cousins by that way. You understand? And
So
my
how do
cousin
you,
was
let me ask you, because we have to wrap up in a little while. And we are
Yes.
not here. The last time you were here, we were discussing the Peace Management Initiative at length. Yeah?
Yes.
This time we're here talking to you about you, yes, specifically taking the gun to school.
Yes.
So now you are a PMI advocate. Now you
Yes.
hear the minister saying that there are 20 schools based on the survey that this is happening. Now
Yes.
Shachan has correctly asked and correctly pointed to the issue of the community and the school.
Yeah.
How you help the minister and how you keep helping yourself now talking to other young people who perhaps are still taking their gun to school. What
All right.
Yes. And,
What is the
and you have 60 seconds to tell me that.
Yes. All right then. What is the message I can really bring forward to the minister? You know, is that when you have these area left out by social worker, as I said, that can knowing whatsoever are all the mindset of the people within every community, even every household. If you have social worker can go around to every household, know who live in every house, know the condition, try to find out what the parents them and the children them what them have are involved in. You understand me? Try to find out the needs and try to bring some solution. That's the only way meeting government can get a hand on that. I don't think luring a lot of money into the police force is got to bring them a solution to it. No, I think get into the community, you understand? Knowing the people within every household of the community, try to know the family of the household. That is how you can check. Meeting, that is how you can check who want to be bad or you can check wanted man from each household, and that's how you can check how people live from another community to another. But them now have social worker within this space who follow up these things. You understand? So it allow we as the one who in the volatile era now, you understand, to mitigate and mix with other people, get other friends to do whatsoever we want them to do because government don't have no one who care about. You understand? People who
passionate plead, right? And I think you're on the right track from my perspective.
Yes.
If you don't deal with the community, the schools are just located there.
Right.
And you attract people from the community. So thank you very much for your presentation. Input, and we continue this talk.
And keep engaged, and keep engaging the folks who to think otherwise, as you did.
Yes, man. I just don't want to cut you, you know. In the day, about 10 o'clock, I myself get 10 at-risk youth from Trenchtown. you understand, to involve in a program that peace management and VPA, you understand,
Right.
trying to get some Irish youth. And I myself, the youth, them never even did want to come down at the multipurpose center, but through me of the experience, I convince them and get them there to sign up for that program.
Okay.
You understand?
Well
And that is
Wonderful.
just a pleasure for me doing that, to lead a youth from the part where me could have involved in it. Although them really get involved in it, but at least them see somebody who care and feel the needs of transformation in a youth life.
Thank you ever so
Thank you
much,
very
Ryan.
much. Thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you
It's
so
a
much.
pleasure.
All right,
Good.
we take a break.
It's getting hot.
Yeah.
It's getting hot. We'll be right back.
All right, we welcome you back to the Real Chat, and we have noted journalist Mark Wignall, man who walks, man who knows the street, and therefore he can speak from a first-hand point of view in terms of his own experience and the experience that he would have garnered from others. Mark, a statement by a Minister of Security, Dr. Harris Chang, in a recent report, said there are several high schools in neglected communities across the island that are literally serving as factories for gunmen and tributaries for prisoners, for people in prison. And this is based on the fact that a survey which was done said that quite a number of people from 20 schools are really people who dwell in those prisons. Your take on that statement, firstly?
Well, first of all, I don't know if the minister is having a kind of renaissance of thoughts where he has to find that, short of issuing any other sort of governance excuse, is forced to admit to some very painful truths. And, you know, without going into long context, I think if a lot of us are honest with ourselves, we'll recognize that both political parties, PNP and GLP, in terms of the governance, they have given a kind of a version of tin mackerel government, right? And I say this because when one looks at, if one should dispassionately look on the quality of the leaders that we have thrown up over many years, and if you, without even knowing their names, they are an impeccable bunch of individuals. And how such an impeccable bunch of individuals could have somehow given us such horrible governance. And I say one real failure of the governance has been in the area of education. And what our security minister is saying, it is either that his back is against the wall, or maybe Dr. Horace Chang find God.
You walk the streets. You know the streets. You know the lens to really look through and look at the real horrors. Right? You would not take now woolly talk, the ray talk, as we say, in the streets.
Yes.
Members of these replacement gangs?
Hmm.
A constant menace or the really misguided souls that are lost? So we shouldn't be blaming the schools, as Streton referred to earlier, but taking a deep look at the community.
Um, yes, in terms of taking a deep look at the community, but at the same time, I think we ought not to be, um, uh, among those who are going to hide our heads somehow to certain realities. And to me, the most painful reality in this country is that somehow the political class and the donor class, they have decided to share up power amongst themselves while giving a kind of smattering of governance to where the real power lies among the people. So why should such an arrangement turn out anything other than what we are getting now, where you have a certain number of schools that just keep on turning out what some of us would call irredeemables. That's painful, man. That's painful for us to recognize that that is a fact.
But you have made a point, and you know, I looked at it and says, a boy who comes from, say, Trenchtown and goes to George's and he does something here that is a Georgian, but he comes from a community where there are learned behavior and situation which he experiences which cause him to be that. But is there a redemptive thing where the schools can be used to correct this sort of thing? Or is it that, as you touched, there's a whole issue of education, that if our education was put aright from independence, we wouldn't have seen this kind of explosion that we are seeing now to begin to blame schools in communities.
And doesn't this feed into this whole thing that, you see, when my son take the common entrance or the GSAT and so on, that's why I really want him go out of school there.
One of the another painful fact is that education in Jamaica today cannot divorce itself from community activity. And there are many instances, or let me put it this way, back I think in the 50s and 60s, the communities were more homogeneous in terms of, you know, that basically what you're going to get is good behavior, you're going to get civility, you're going to get a sort of a recognition that if authority works for you, you're going to work back in tandem with authority. I think what we have now is that you have entire communities, you know, which can mess up one school, you know, by the sort of a behavior that one community push and have big influence over just about everything else within a physical space. Let me tell you, may I just add to that? There's a school, which of course I'll not name.
No names, no names.
Right. And I got some information. One day I was in a little bar of one place. I'm sorry, I'll check it out. And I called the principal of the school and he said, okay, Mr. Wigner, I will meet with you. And when I met with him, the information I had gathered is that there was I think an 11-year-old boy there pimping out some girls, 10 and 8 and what have you. And he said, yes, Mr. Wigner, I'm aware of it. And we checked it out, and the boy's mother is a prostitute, and every weekend she go down to Ocheros and this and that. So the youth is just following what a mama do. And what the mama is doing is to try to survive. My God, that is how some parts of the society exist. Sure.
How do we heal?
Well, that is a big one. And I believe that, unfortunately for us, there are not too high a percentage of our people who are that turned on to seeing education as the real healer in the society, the real the, the real glue that can put us to a better future for our children, our grandchildren, and our nation as a whole. I don't think enough of our people are turned on to that.
Is it because the perception is that takes too much work?
No, I believe it has to do with our quality education. You know, it is not that we don't have educated people here, but I just believe that a lot of this sort of education we're getting now is kind of misdirected. Some of the simpler things we're overlooking, and we look into the the bright, fancy, shiny parts.
Yes. And some of these communities are used to develop the culture that some people want. You had mentioned, as I said, you have a drug man. He finds a bad man to protect that. And then you find a politician. And then you find a policeman. That's an unbreakable quartet.
Power sucks into power.
Yes. Explain that first, briefly.
It's a very simple one. It's a very simple one. And this is not something that I just glued together out of some book knowledge. This is something that I have observed firsthand in this country, in just looking at our political behavior and our political culture, and how it has developed into what it is now. You will have, say, let's say an extortionist in an area, and he's going to make a lot of money off of, say, a transportation hub. So he knows that he would have to get the baddest policeman in the area as his first partner. So he gets that one. Now the politician starts to understand that this policeman and this extortion is making money. So I'm saying, watch your man, money. When election time comes, that's what I go and need. So I need to link with them brother there. So them do that particular link. And then you may have a big drug man now who may need to call on some of the extortionists, field agents, otherwise known as soldiers, to come and help him out into something. So what you find is that you have this big, nasty stink of powerful people put together, and when they come out, they're going to come out with the softest, most pleasant voices.
All right.
And that culture is spread to the community, and people in that community go to schools, and then the school get the blame.
And as I said before, we need to devise a way to somehow convince the society that a lot of our we need a lot more compassion instead of just expending time on our passions.
More compassion than the stridency that we believe can solve everything.
Yes, and I do a problem with our young people going and taking in a good dance or show and them rock themselves. You know what I mean?
Right.
But more of our people need to see that as just as even though it's a culture and it is something that excites us, we need to know that there are some other parts about us that we have to latch into. And those are the ones that are going to move us towards seeing a better future.
All right, Mark. Thank you ever so much. Love this.
And I hope it will please. Our doors are open, right?
All right.
All right, my brother. Good.
Take care.
All right, we take a break.
Stratton, it's interesting what Mark Wignall earlier remarked, that the minister, his hands are either tied or he has found God. With this admission that there are 20 schools, given the survey, that are in neglected communities, that are like factories now for gunmen and the incarcerated.
Yes, and tributaries to the prison.
To the prison.
But to me, and from what you were saying, the circle leads back to the politicians in terms of the communities are not separated from the schools, and so the people in the community goes to most of those schools, and this is what.
But there are some who will contend that it's now well past the politicians. It's no. It's not the genie. It's the monster now that has jumped from the jar.
Because the criminals has gained certain independence by virtue of the amount of money they are making.
There's a man who we need to put this question to, Professor Christopher Charles, professor in political and social psychology, himself a child of the inner city, who closely studies all the variables and the critical dynamics. Is the minister's hands tied? Has he found God? Are we just our backs against the wall? This whole issue of replacement gangs, what is this story?
Professor?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening. I'm happy to be here again.
Good, thanks.
I don't know that the minister's hands are tied.
Come again?
I don't know that the minister's hands are tied. And so before I go further in this direction, I just like to contextualize something and clarify something. The youngsters are now more independent of politicians than they have been in the past, but the youngsters are still largely supportive of their political party. And there are a few MPs who still have a lot of control and influence over gang members. It is not as popular as before, but we're not past that. We haven't passed that problem yet. So yes, they are independent, but they are still tied politically in terms of their identity to the political parties, and there are a few MPs who still have a lot of influence over the gangsters. That's where I'm starting. Then I move on now to the minister. And these are very intelligent people. And sometimes some of us in the academy, when we're teaching, we might make derogatory remarks about their competence and their intelligence. But we know full well that these men are not fools. They are some of the brightest people in the country. If that is so, why is it that they have been using or implementing the same kind of tough policing from 1962 to 2021? It therefore means, if you understand politicians, that they are benefiting from the present status quo. So let me explain to you.
Please.
If you start in 1967 with that state of emergency implemented by the government of Jamaica Labour Party, it was very popular. Jamaicans are authoritarian by nature, and we love aggressive posture, we love tough stances, and we love tough policing. So the government was popular in 1967 because of tough policing. Let's move to 1974 with the Suppression of Crime Act, where that's a point where now large numbers of JCF officers, Jamaica Constabulary Force officers, didn't need any warrant to come into your premises, and your rights were suspended because the government wanted to suppress crime. So we had several generations of police officers who were not socialized professionally how to respect the rights of Jamaicans because of the Suppression of Crimes Act. It was very popular, right? And had some impact like the state of emergency in 1967, but not good enough. But the people like the tough policing, and so the government of the day becomes popular. Take the Gun Court Act, right? 80% of the people, from the poll I saw from my research, supported the establishment of the gun court, right, in response to the rising gun crimes and homicides in the early 1970s. It was very popular again. And so the Manley government was popular because the people found these tough policing measures popular, even although they don't always work and do what they are touted to be able to do. And so in 1976, if we follow, the Manley government was popular. One of the reasons why the government was so popular was because the state of emergency was popular. We look again in 2020, in the election last year, if you look at the polls, the Don Anderson polls coming up 2019, 2020 and so on, you realize that the majority of Jamaicans support the state of the periods of emergency and the zones of special operation. We're authoritarian by nature, and we love tough policing. So when the government of the day implements these measures, their popularity goes up. So people generally tend to like tough policing measures, which redounds to the advantage of the government, even though these measures have largely failed over the last 60 years. So his hands are not tied. Using tough policing is something that they know the people like, and they want to win, and they can't come up with a solution, so they don't have the solutions, so they keep using the tough policing because they know the people like it and it will make them popular with the people.
What are they using now that makes him realize that it needs the sort of, not charity he says, but needs the sort of committed investment to turn it around? His words. He must be realizing that something is not working. Especially when he takes stock of the survey that there are at least 20 such schools.
And what has happened to lead him to this new level of thinking?
On the road to Damascus.
I don't know if that is a new level. This is a very smart man, right? A very savvy man, a very strategic man. But I don't know that it's a new level of thinking. I think it is strategic. We have a problem in Jamaica that I call the one-study syndrome. If you look at Professor Ellis, Professor Harriet, my friend and colleague Herbert Gale, my colleagues in the US who are Jamaicans and in Europe who study crime in Jamaica, you look at World Bank, UNDP, and others. The studies on the crime problem and what can be done is legion in Jamaica. And what he has said in relation to the schools as crime factories, those schools, we already know this. It's documented. So it's nothing new. But to say it is symbolic manipulation. It's a symbol that gives the populace the impression that, them catch on now. And that something is going to be done.
But Prof, it's as if they are saying that it is the school you are producing these people. You go there innocent and by some
No, not the school, it is society.
Yes, but this is the statement that there are 20 identifiable schools and we have to do something about them. This is what I'm getting
but we have a Ministry of Education. We have a Ministry of Education. We have a Ministry of National Security. We have school resource officers. We have guidance counselors, we have all these people. So if it is the schools that are producing the criminals, right? So the schools are failing, but it's not really the schools that are producing the criminals. The criminal just happen to live in that community, potential criminal that is. They used to go to the school and they don't have any money, so they stop. Or they want to take care of their sister. In the sense that they want a sister to get the education, and there are problems at home, and they don't see school. Based on where they are living, they don't see school as a way out. Because as successful as I am, as some people tell me, there are people in my family who didn't take the academic route, because at the time, even though I had the degrees, we were all suffering in the inner city. Right? So I have nieces and nephews who didn't take the academic route because they didn't see it working. But my son, looking, say, oh, this is a viable path. So the youngsters who are there, they don't see education as a viable path. And the adult youngsters around encourages them to believe and provide support and income and a surrogate family and so on. So they pull them into the gangs. So it is the fact that the boys drop out of school why they become criminals. It's not the schools create them.
Right.
It is our failure as a society to keep our boys and girls in schools.
Some contend it's the pressures of persistent poverty.
It is, but poverty doesn't cause crime because the majority of the poor around the world are law-abiding people.
Quite so.
But poverty makes you vulnerable to manipulation by people with resources and people with power.
Dwight Spence, one of those who used to take his gun to school, made an interesting remark. He says, it can't be just money, So this thing, yes, fine, investment, but investment is not just money. Investment is
social investment. You have emotional, you have
right. Investment, he says, is the social worker coming into the respective homes
knowing the families.
And knowing the family and knowing who is at risk. Because he was quite pleased telling us that at 10 o'clock this morning he took about 10 or a dozen high-risk young men to a workshop. What's the mix? What's the mix here?
All right. So remember...
And you have 90 seconds. Because
remember the last time I was here, I spoke about providing support for vulnerable families.
Right.
In terms of parenting, training, workshop resources, and the same visitation and so on that he mentioned. So that is very important. And you need more than a social worker. You need all the behavioral scientists that deal with dysfunctional families and deviant behavior to come together, along with the Ministry of National Security, along with the Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Justice and other support ministries to craft a program that meets, that mitigates or curbs the vulnerabilities of these families that are generating the criminals.
What bothers me, Prof, is that the situation that confronts us needs serious study. You yourself...
You mean you still want to study it again and I mentioned
no, that's not the point. That's the introduction. Yourself, Herbert, Gail, etc. We know about you. And we see the realm of research that has been done, which brings it to a scientific level. Why are the decision makers not buying into that?
Because our studies don't win elections. What they do, they know that the people like tough policing. We're very aggressive people,
Yes.
If you look at some Jamaican internet partner relationships, the amount of aggression. If you look at parenting style, the amount of aggression. If you look at how teachers relate to students, or principals relate, very authoritarian, very aggressive. If you look at how leaders deal with subordinates, very aggressive, very authoritarian. So this is what they're tapping into. They know this. So all they have to do, 2 years before the election, they come with some tough policing measure, right? Or some measures with new names.
So we can expect. So given the crime rate, we can expect another round of it.
Law and order.
Yes, man. You do the law and order, and you are tough, and you catch some of the criminals. You take them before the courts, and some are convicted and put away. But that's just it.
Could we say they are hypocritical because
the conditions that generate the criminals from the community, from the schools and the homes, remain unaddressed.
So they are being hypocritical then, because the problem really resides with them.
No, not hypocritical.
Yeah.
They are being strategic.
Wow.
They respond to electoral cycle.
It has been, it is saying that we must accept it, therefore.
No, it's not saying that we must accept it. I'm saying
Yeah.
they can be this strategic to win elections that is to the detriment of the country. And it's not just the Jamaica Labour Party. You know. It goes across.
We're not talking right.
No, it's not. I am saying this because sometimes my friends will say, why have to mention both parties? Because we're talking about the government.
No, but you catalog from 1952 to now, yes.
It is so, it has been around for such a long time that to say just one side would be dishonest. Right? So they are being strategic because they know the tough policing. The only reason why we don't have bad man policing still, it is because of we have a stronger civil society. The bad man police, then, they were the most popular police officers. And even retirement, some of them are still very popular. If it wasn't for the human rights group and in particular civil society groups in general, we still have them. And why they were popular, it is because the aggressive policing is embraced, not by the population in terms of the regular police encounter, but aggressive police in relation to the so-called criminals.
And yet, there is a lot to be said for community policing. Softer policing, as some claim, but more strategic policing.
Yeah, but I would say what is there is strategic, because as I said the last time I was here, the police officers foolishly put themselves in a bind. They act as if they are ministers of the gospel, they are social workers, they are psychologists, they are psychiatrists, they are community leaders, they are project development officers, community development officers, they are coaches, they are teachers, they are guidance counselors, and they are investors. That's all. So if the rest of the institutions in the society, if those institutions were operating properly, then the JCF could keep doing what it is doing and would have a lower crime rate. All we have been doing, is going after gunmen. And I like to say gun boys. If we were working with the schools effectively, working in communities effectively, and working in the homes, when I say work, I'm not talking the piecemeal or small-scale work that is currently underway. So, for example, look at the Job Corps run by the Jamaica Defense Force. It's a lovely program. How many youngsters a year? 1,500. I wouldn't even want about a quote the amount of youngsters that are unattached now. It's about 200 times that.
All right.
Wow.
Professor,
we have programs, but the scale, right, is not on the scale that it ought to be. So it's very small. So it's not having the impact. But at election time, you can say, we trained 10,000 youngsters or 13,000 youngsters over 5 years.
Right.
When you have 150,000, 200,000 youngsters in need of, I'm saying it this way, care and protection from the state.
All right.
Because they're vulnerable, they're unattached.
All right, so thanks again.
All right. We will, shall we say, hold it there for now. All right. And of course, we'll be reaching out to you again, because this is a discussion we still have to be having over and over again. So,
all right, take care.
Right. Thanks. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this. All right, Shatta.
Andre Anarchy.
It is quite a route we have been taking.
Yes.
Speaking to Dwight Spence, who used to take his gun to school,
No,
the journalist Mark Wigno, the professor, professor in political and social psychology, Professor Christopher Charles, and now we are back because it's a story that weaves around all type of personalities and characters, right? Now we are back with another peace management initiative advocate, Andre Anarchy, and he also used to take his gun to school. And Andre, we're talking about what is concerning the minister, what is clearly of concern to the wider society. There are schools that seem to be manufacturing, says the minister, gunmen. That seems to be producing graduates for incarceration. How, as a man who used to take your gun to school, how did you avoid this?
I swear, if I tell you the truth, it's a thing like this, whenever I have my strap or gun for me, there's a very few person that's close to me that more tell, if I say, listen, I have this for me, but keep your mouth. And I say it to nobody because I got in a trouble. So I have to end up just fearing who are close to me also to keep them out.
But why did you take your gun to school?
We live in a community, sir, where we have friends and family friends where are done and bad people and things. So we exposed to the gun and we also exposed the crime and violence because at one point we could go from one side of the community to the next side. So we have to end up be a part of the systematical violence what takes place in the community.
So it's not the school that is the problem then, it's the community.
Well, it's a community, and I really the school because at that period of time, in fear of my life, reason being that I have to take a gun and go to school. Because I prepare myself for anything to come at me. Whether it be my enemy, somebody from the other side that want to kill me, whether it be even the police or the soldier, I prepare to engage battle with them. And I not think about dead, but I think about to make escape. Because at that time, you're young and naive, so we did fearless at that time.
What age group were you?
I was 15 years old, going 16,
And it was a non-traditional high school? Don't call the name. We're not. You went to a non-traditional high school, a regular high school?
No, it's a private school. It's a non-traditional high school. It's a private
school.
Yeah.
What was it like those times, living like that, having your strap on, you're going, walking daily, etc. You had enemies from the bad people, enemies in a sense from the police who will.
And how did the school try to reach out to you? You had sessions with the guidance counselor. What was that like?
All right. The principal did aware of my background. A lady called Miss Lana Archer Stanley. I used to go to fair private institution, same place on 12C College Smith Drive. And she was the lady that saw some stuff in me. She saw the great part in a moment, never ever see. She saw the leadership potential that me have because me have influence on other classmates and class friends. Because a pint, you usually bring a ganja go sell in the school and cigarettes. And I also get head boy at the school.
Lord Jesus.
Yeah, man, I get head boy at the school as a
enforcer?
As a young leader. So I get head boy at the school and in other.
Then you get head boy and the people them know so you walk with the things.
Yeah, because me have this leadership background still, Even though I still have that. You have this leadership belief I can easily influence a person for the good instead of influence them for the bad. But she always when some guys misunderstood me, just take them one side and counsel them, while myself need the counseling too.
Good.
You know?
Good.
Yeah, but at that time, she saw the potential in me, and I just come out of the bowl with her and tell her, say, no, say right now, I engage in a certain thing in the community, and I kind of want a change, you know. And my first...
So you really wanted a change all along then?
Yeah.
What caused that? Tell us what caused that in you. Why?
You know, to tell you the truth, I want to get exposed to Hillcrest Avenue uptown by Fair House, and I go sovereign and them place, and I see me walk free without me have to look behind, and I always have a ratchet knife for me still. You know? When I see when I can walk free, and I can express myself to other person from in the middle class society where them treat me good and them treat me nice, so I start look for my community and say, but it's really a systematical thing, and I want systematical influence, you know, me not see the wider world, I only say within my community, and I look at surrounding circle. You know? It's like through a lion and a hyena in a pen. You know, and see them backload to see who are going to survive.
So what brought the change? What eventually caused the change?
Well, I guess there's a many persons that sponsor me overseas in the school, and them saw something in me I never really see. Because me have some overseas sponsors, and them kind of motivate me. I have some person who really motivate me and show me, say, yo, listen, good things in a youth, man. Good things in you. I can remember when we usually go to the local program, you know, the Era Youth Foundation program, and they usually take for you out, and we usually collect our 4 or 5 food. Me one of our 4 food. Me I sell our back some of the food them. You know, because at the end of the day, I have to have a local donation in my pocket, because mommy no have it and daddy no have it. You know, and because of the violence in the community, them can't go look no work and feed for me and my rest of brother them. You know? So when mommy end up start work and things, she end up, I forgot to say she walk off for the job. Not really necessarily walk off for the job, but the security work company where she that work with, the management for that company, end up bring film company, I think Guyana or Antigua, one of them foreign islands, because they rob up some money.
All right.
Sometimes they have the cash plus something there where they go around scamming with the money.
So all right. So we're going to wrap this up here now, because the producers are wagging the menacing fingers to say, listen, we have to move on to the other segment. I want to ask you this. The minister is concerned, and he says these communities with these schools don't need charity. They need critical investment. Help guide the minister as what you see that has to be done and has to be provided. What if he says to you, Andre, come over here, come talk to me, since you was a man who used to involve in this? How are we going to manage this? Because like Dwight before you, it's not just money. Dwight says it's knocking on the houses of at-risk families and all of that. What would you tell the minister?
What may I tell the minister, honestly, is if all these programs that they implement before, like the CSJP program, the YOU program, and all these programs, social intervention program them. These programs are reach out to the youth them in the character community, in the hostile community. Reach out to them and introduce the Archers Foundation, skill, and offer them a skill, give them a stipend, and that can help, because I can remember in my time, that was one of the changes that will change me. You know, so they need to have more social intervention program. They need to bring back the Archers something there with the CSJP, you know, and the YOU bodies. They need to get back all these programs, the YOU Youth Opportunity Unlimited program. They need to implement back those social intervention programs so they can reach the youth them in the community. And you know, I really feel like them need to do a household visit with these social intervention program, because if you really check the status of the youth them, majority of the youth them never a proper home, you know. And it's starting from a broken home, broken family, you know, and it go on, and these youth just have nobody to motivate them and instill certain belief and principle that in them we can carry out of them, make them see themselves.
Mr. Chang, Minister Chang, have you walked the street with you too?
Huh?
Minister Chang, have you walked the street with you too?
No. He would have to do that. But there's persons, there's these organizations that him can use and get back in a data, send back into him. And all these data, him can have persons contact these persons to see how well they are doing. Like every month or every 3 weeks within the month. And do a following up on these persons within this community, because it can happen. Just as though they may implement money in the JDF, just as though they may implement money in the Jamaica Constabulary Force, which is the police force, just as though they may implement money in the private security companies, them, just as though they may implement money in somebody when really some social body will not really do any work. These are the bodies that do the work, and them don't even acknowledge the work that these persons are doing, these social intervention programs. These people are reach out to the youth them in the community, provide needs of opportunity to them, provide scholarship. I can't tell you because I know friends, even me myself go through the Art Trust Foundation, to the CSJP, and they see why you want me get award, me a certified plumber now, level 3 plumber.
All right.
All right.
CSJP.
All right, Andre.
I think you have said it all, and from your experience, and let me say that high commendations to you on the route that you have taken, that you have now become an instructor and an influencer. Let me put it that way.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, because me also a part of a church, but they were reaching the man them from the corner. We had one corner thing, we have a local corner thing with them play some domino. I would try to introduce them to Christ and Christ living.
Wonderful.
You know,
this is wholesome. Andre, we have to talk to you again.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes,
but this is what is good about our country. Right? The resilience in trying to make change. Thank you so much, Andre. Yeah?
Yes, sir. Thank you for this interview, sir.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
sir.
Anytime, my brother. Anytime.
Yes, sir. I'm available anytime you guys want to speak with me, because there's a lot more to say, but we just don't have the time to say it.
All right.
All right. Just do it.
So another time we'll continue with this, right?
Yes.
Remember to share, subscribe, and support the program by contributing to the Cash App Real Chat, right? We always chat because some issues you just have to chat.
Yes.
If you perhaps passed over the story of particular schools being training grounds for the incarcerated, you might not have missed another media highlight of the impact of dancehall on violence. These reports keep engaging various points of contention. It's a hot, boiling culture pot. And the article in last Sunday's Observer by Professor Basil Bagger Wilson, former provost of the John Jay College of Criminal Justice of the City of New York, proved quite insightful. I'm in the middle of a Kingston College clan, but if I'm adopted, I shall also have them as honorary Georgians. And that's a good mix. That's a good mix. Professor Basil Bagger Wilson, how are you?
I am fine, sir.
I
Thank you for
read
inviting me.
I read the article last Sunday with particular interest. For our listeners, just highlight some of the points that you were making.
Well, the point is that we are in something of a cultural crisis, and we have had a high level of violence throughout the society from the 1960s, and we have not been able to find ways of reducing violence. So we have this rich musical culture. It is often positive. I mean, when you listen to the music of Robert Nesta Marley, that rising consciousness that has had an impact worldwide. There's no question about his music. And in fact, even since his death in 81, his music has become even more significant, prominent, and really has had a profound impact on the world. In the 1980s and in the 1990s and thereafter, we have had something of a cultural degeneration in some aspects of the society. Now, you can look at dancehall as an independent variable, and you can look at it as a dependent variable. I mean, there's a consensus as to what it is. But my argument is that we need to find ways to socialize young people and get them involved in the music in such a way that they become an integral part of the music, not just in terms of listening, but also in playing and having an appreciation both for the music and the culture. And I think dancehall artists, even though the music starts out glorifying violence, a certain amount of lewdness, I think in recent years there's a certain maturity that has come over some of the artists. So somebody like a Buju Banton, Sean Paul, there's a Louis Culture. There's a number of dancehall artists. Even somebody like a Capleton has begun to give fundraising efforts to his home in St. Mary, his parish in St. Mary. Bounty Killer has been involved in public hospital. Beanie Man has been involved in a community center in Waterhouse and has done some facilities work in Craigtown. So there's a positivity that can take place in dancehall, and the dancehall artist has been so influential in the society. So what I would like to see is that they function more as a collective, and in fact bring the music especially into the elementary schools, and in fact enrich that curriculum in such a way that it can bring about some reduction in the level of violence that exists in society. It to use the music as a tool, as one factor in reducing the violence.
Is it a case, though, that art mirrors culture, culture mirrors art in the case of Jamaica? And we know the gun culture, if you want, a bus, and the slackness and the moral spilling, you know, that has become popular with majority, well, with a good section of our youngsters' existence.
But I think we can beat that back. I mean, I think that if the society becomes more introspective, if we begin to have ways in which we examine the culture and understand the dynamic nature of culture. Take, for example, Lee Kuan Yew, who was instrumental in the development of Singapore. Lee Kuan Yew mentioned that culture is development. And so one of the problems that we have in terms of our inner city community, a youngster will say to somebody, how much duffy have you seen? And in fact, they look up to people who are in fact the perpetrators of violence. And what you want them to do is to look up to people who are the painters, the sculptors, the artists, the educators, the people who can in fact regenerate the society and make the inner city community in terms of what we should call community efficacy. That is terribly important in reducing the level of violence. Part of the problem that we have is that the marginalization has become so great that it has metastasized to the point where the violence feeds upon the violence.
But I ask you this, Professor Wilson. How do we fashion this transformative shift that we must take? It have to happen. But how do we do this when the coarseness is so all pervasive?
Well, let me give an example in terms of some years ago, we had established a peace management initiative. And that was under the auspices of people like Horace Levy, the late Barrister Barnes, and others. And at that point, we developed some cadres who were capable of going into inner city communities and negotiating with different factions in order to turn swords into plowshares.
Yeah, we were just speaking. We were just speaking to some of the advocates. Yes.
Right, and in fact, that was dismissed. It was put aside, and so therefore you have now some business conflicts that have become chronic, and there's no entity that can go into those communities and settle those disputes. So that it might not necessarily be a panacea, but it is an institutional creation in order to deal with the country. And I don't see why we cannot reconstitute some of those initiatives. Take, for example, as a young man, I grew up, not just in Tennessee, but I grew up in Doncaster Youth Club. I spent a lot of my time in Doncaster Youth Club, and Youth Club used to play an important role in communities, not just in Wellington Town or Raytown, but all over the island. Youth clubs are an important entity. That a lot of that has collapsed. We have cricket and we have football, but they do not have the impact with the socialization of young people that they should be having. And I think there's ways in which the civil society, not just the government, but civil society can play an important role in the nurturing and the development of that kind of community efficacy.
Yeah. Let me just put this to Doc. Our discussions today would have had two individuals who used to carry guns to school in their bags, whether for protection or whatever. But this situation is that people are saying that the school produces these and not blaming, to my mind, the community as it is. How then do we get the community to change, given the fact that with the PMI situation, it's something which it has reduced importance in the eyes of the government?
Well, I think we have to realize and to put our heads together as to how we build community, right? One thing that you have in Jamaica is that you have a deep sense of where people are around their home base. I mean, if you take a community like Central Kingston, you have a place like Southside, you have Tel Aviv, you have Raytown, you have Brownstown, you have Franklintown, you have Richfield,
you have spoilers. You have spoilers.
Huh?
You have spoilers.
Yes, but what I'm saying now is that I think the schools can play a much larger role, because when you look at most of these parish schools and what have you, we have brought about a transformation in terms of the educational system. There was a time in the 50s and in the early 60s when just a tiny fraction of people were able to go to St. George's or Casey or Calabar or Immaculate or St. Andrew. We transformed that a lot in the 70s, right? We were turning out much more graduates, but we're also leaving behind a lot more people. So one of the things that we would have to do is to make certain that in these new high schools that have been established, that the dropout rate is reduced significantly, whether we introduce summer school, whether we introduce other kinds of activities, in terms of remedial education, to ensure that kids can, in fact, the students can succeed and remain and become productive. Because those who drop out, they become the problem for the kind of violence that exists in many of these communities. Now we have local government, right? We have a parliament and we have local government. The local government is playing an important role in terms of what goes on on the ground and how we can build up community to the point where you can have cadres who can really make a difference in establishing the necessary institutions in order to make these communities much more wholesome than they presently are. I mean, let me give an example, Curtis. There was a police officer at Ellison Road in Central Kingston who formed what was called Central Youth Club. And if you understand, the footballers who were the products of Central Youth Soccer Club, Frank Brown became the captain and curator, right? And you can, Joe Banner became one of the better senior cup players at the time for Railway. And a lot of those kids learned their football in Central Youth Club. Now you have that is based in Ellison Road. It is clear that club no longer exists. And the young kids them playing a little place for a crab ball rather than using the facilities of Ellison. Zip up and develop into useful and productive citizens. So these kinds of institutions are not just producing footballers, but they are producing citizens in terms of how we train the socialization and experience of young people.
Right. Time is always the enemy, Prof, and we really thank you for joining us, and we will call on you again and again. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, gentlemen. And Curtis?
Yes.
We do adopt people from yours.
Yes, and we run a good exchange shift as well. All right, Professor. Thanks so much. Good. A hot, boiling culture pot without Dr. Dennis Howard stirring it. Ready to serve what's well seasoned, or so he thinks. Here is the music historian, journalist, broadcaster, television producer, record producer, and lecturer. Meet the multi-talented and multifaceted Dr. Dennis Howard. And we're not going to talk again of which school him go.
All right. I guess you said it. I don't have to say it. Without even saying a word.
Without even saying a word. Dr. Howard, how are you? Welcome to the program, Real Chat.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
And I'm
among family.
Yes, and I'm here beside your schoolmate and cousin.
Of course.
Because you all believe you're all cousins. Those of you who attended Kingston College.
We are brothers. We are brothers.
Okay, all right, I hear you. The question of dancehall and its impact, right, on violence. Some of us claim there is connection, correlation.
Yeah.
Some of us contend that, hey, dancehall is art that's looking glass at our very selves. Why blame the music, right?
Yeah.
Where's the balance in all this? How do we soberly address all the contending factors here?
Yeah, I think what one should try and develop a different approach to dealing with some of the issues in our society, and we should go back to something more akin to an African epistemology about how we approach things, because the Western way of thinking about things sometimes kind of are not suitable for us, because we always want to be binary.
Yeah.
We always want to point fingers.
Always. Lord, we love it. We love it. It's an obsession, you see?
Yeah, it's a diversionary tactic
all the time.
From even people who are in power, and sometimes their own incompetence and inefficiency are being exposed, and then they find scapegoats.
Right.
That being said, I firmly believe that music is the most powerful thing in this world. And if whatever the message is coming out of a music, it will affect the individual. And it will affect the individual in various ways. It can give you comfort. It can opinion. Sometimes music.
Can you change the position where you are a bit? Because sometimes that's excellent. That's excellent.
Yeah. So I'm saying music has a role in terms of influencing people in all kind of ways. When you listen to a particular type of music, when army have music and they do it in a particular way to motivate people to go kill people, because that is what the army is about, and them have music for that. In different tribes all over the world, not only in Africa but everywhere, there are warrior songs and warrior cries. The Australians have it, the New Zealanders have it, the white people them have it, all of them have it. The Indians them have it. So that's a fact. And the data on this research on this matter of music influencing violent acts is conclusive. It does. However,
repeat that for me.
I'm saying that the research that has been done, the psychological research that has been done and chronicled extensively, is that music influence people in violence, in violent ways. Just as how it influences you in other ways, it motivates you, it calms you down. It also depends on the type of music, where it's coming from, rap, dancehall, reggae, middle of the road music, whatever the music is, if it is if it's a particular type of tempo and intent, it will affect it will affect you in terms of encouraging you to do violence.
Comment on the deliberateness of our artists who is seeking a bus, talking about Maraga run and those really gross statements, which then enters the mind of inner city youth. Some of them who do have any guidance.
Man, so it affect them. There's no question that it don't affect them. But the thing is, what we need to do as a society is not look at the music by itself and isolate it and villainize it and demonize it and demonize the music.
Look at where it is coming from. The source.
We must talk about the social conditions and the centuries of exploitation of black people in a Jamaican context, which allow this kind of violence to come. The state is the most violent apparatus in Jamaica. We forget the Cat 9. We forget police brutality. The first thing we do is beat people. We forget that a whole heap we get murderation and boxed down as kids, because that was what was taught to the people, the police force. And I emphasize the force. After the Morant Bay rebellion, it was instituted to keep black people in check. The laws of this country is to keep we in check. Vagrancy law.
But some of us seem to forget that right after the Morant Bay rebellions, we built the prisons and Bellevue and they're underground. They're underground tunnels linking both.
Quickly. This kind of marginalization and dispossession that continues now, that we're still bulldozing squatters and treating them like they're not human beings, continues, and that is violence. Bulldozing of the people up at wherever recently, that is violence. That is violence. And so the society is a violent society. We're coming from this. Similarly, how America is on the blood of black people that it built and continues to do so. And we are black people in America, so as in Jamaica, are the persons who build the wealth of this country and are victimized and violence is unleashed on us. So we create criminals, we create uneducated people, we create at-risk kids who don't have any facility to understand what they're doing. Because most of the times, the people them want to kill people at 12 and 14 and 15, and a lot of the killing that is going on in the society has nothing to do with criminality. It's just a violent society and people just want to kill one another. So many families are killing each other. Sisters are killing people for money. So it's a bad mind thing and a grab for wealth and money and land and all kind of foolishness. So we're killing all left, right, and center.
Point well noted.
So the point is now, we as a society and as leaders, and I'm not just pinpointed the government, but they are the first part of this thing. Everybody, the church, the private sector, everybody, the academia, the schools have to put this thing around. We have to start humanize people again, because it's not going to stop. Policing can't stop it.
All right, thanks a lot.
All right, Dennis.
Yeah.
You've got to come back, right? Because we must also address how we engage artists now as messengers in hopefully trying to turn things around, right?
Yeah.
In fact, yes, in 60 seconds, yes.
Yeah, but what I need to, so we need to really call the artists to book and say, listen, you are contributing to it too, but it's not you alone. So we're not going to highlight you and say it's you causing it. That's scapegoating. And it was disingenuous of the Prime Minister and anybody else who did that. It is disgusting that in a society that we're killing off, and people are murdered basically because of the type of conditions that they are exposed to in the health system, in the penal system, in every system that is run by government. Them people are dying, and nobody not care. And so you can't then look at the music alone and say, yo, you have to clean up your act. The society have to clean up its act
We need to clean.
before.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It's all of us.
All right, brother. Thanks a lot.
All right, Dr. Howard. And
Yeah,
again, remember the invitation for you to return, because we must speak to you in terms of how we may transform our artists as messengers.
And the job is to educate people
Yes,
out there, so the
yes,
causal factors
yes.
as to where we are.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Edutainment, right?
Yeah, man.
All right, my brother. Thanks so much for joining us, right?
Thanks for having me.
Good. When we return, the crippling COVID-19 pandemic. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Real Chat. It's been a stirring chat from evening, Stratton.
Yes.
You would agree?
Always.
Right, on the legacy of Clarvis Joseph, on crime, on dancehall and the violence. And there is more chat, more serious chat. Because it can now be described as the crippling COVID-19 pandemic that has now sent us reeling and leaving our health sector buckling. Not a case now of whether it can or can't. We are buckling. How worried are you? And how worried is the Medical Association of Jamaica? We have the president online, Dr. Andrew Manning. Dr. Manning, how are you?
I'm fine, Curtis.
How worried are you?
Well, I'm concerned. There's no point worrying. What you have to do is display a certain level of concern, make a plan, and do what you have to do to correct the current situation. So we are concerned. We are in the midst of the second surge, and the numbers of admissions over the last few weeks has severely challenged the hospitals, and we are running out of bed space. So that is a problem.
Have we acknowledged the risk to our medical people in terms of the exposure to the COVID-19 pandemic, and have we taken adequate measures to protect these people?
Well, it certainly has been acknowledged from early on in the crisis. Healthcare workers are at a higher risk than the general population, both in terms of getting the COVID-19 and getting a severe form of it. And as such, there has been a lot of efforts made to have the appropriate amount and types of PPEs or personal protective equipment available. So that has been looked at. There have been challenges, though, throughout this whole crisis in terms of getting PPEs, because you had items that prior to the crisis that would cost something like 35 US cents, and then those have jumped up. So now you're probably paying $30 US for one, that kind of thing, if you can get them. Because all of these items have to be imported. We don't produce them here currently, except for the face shields. So that has been a challenge.
I want to read from a statement that is now doing the rounds, WhatsApp. It's a statement reportedly from the Medical Association of Jamaica, ivermectin. Am I correct?
Yes.
It says, Kingston, Jamaica, February 25, which is today. Jamaica now finds itself at a crisis point in the COVID-19 pandemic. The numbers of hospital admissions and deaths are increasing. We are currently awaiting the arrival and deployment of a COVID-19 vaccine. Our hospitals are close to full capacity. With the current situation, the MAJ is recommending that any and all scientifically sound and safe measures be employed to reduce the spread of, as well as to treat COVID-19. We call on the Ministry of Health and Wellness to incorporate the drug ivermectin in the protocols for the management of COVID-19. It has been a pitch from Dr. Alfred Rattray, the family doctor, in various columns in the Gleaner. In fact, the last one I saw a particular...
Alfred or Garfield.
Garfield, I'm very
right.
sorry. I saw the last article where it was a serious alliteration of these. I'm disheartened, I am disillusioned, and he went on, I'm distraught. In noting all the increasing cases and the deaths, and he was strongly promoting ivermectin. Tell us about this drug. And do you think that the government is receptive at this stage? Or perhaps we are at the point, as some people are arguing, that we just feel we can't do no more, and when the vaccine come, it come, and we're going to just happen, just happen. Dr. Manning, where are we?
So, first and foremost, if you look on my statement, on the MAJ statement, in the last paragraph, we pointed out.
Hold on, Dr. Manning. Let me run this down. Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Even with the ivermectin, we're calling on persons to continue to wear the mask properly, use a hand sanitizers, avoid crowding, and practice social distancing. That is clear, one. Two, when the vaccine becomes available, people need to use it. All right? We definitely are at a critical juncture at this point. Ivermectin has been around for many years. It's an anti-parasitic drug. All right? It has been used as a war medicine. It has been used in the past to deal with night blindness. All right? It has been around for a long time.
For itchy stone and all of that sort of thing?
And has been shown over the years to have a certainly acceptable safety profile. It has also been used or has been shown in lab studies to have antiviral effects and anti-inflammatory effects. Now, there have been different studies that have looked at it with respect to COVID-19. And many studies, some of them peer-reviewed, some not yet peer-reviewed. And some of them are early studies. But the data at this point does show that it can be effective in terms of bringing down the numbers of new cases and also in terms of bringing down the mortality rate. So the fact that you have something that has been shown scientifically to decrease
and I don't want to use the word cheap.
The mortality rate and with a good safety profile.
Yes.
We are calling on the government to approve its usage here. And in fact, we're calling the government to incorporate it into their treatment protocols. Because one of the things we did know is it's not so clear exactly what dose we should be using for COVID-19. All right? We have different dosages that have been used. But they have brought down the mortality, but we don't want people to be going on the internet and just coming up with their own thing. We want the authorities to look at it, and they may very well be looking at it, and incorporate it into the protocol. We think it can be of benefit to us in our current situation, especially when you consider the surge in cases and the limited bed capacity that we have.
But hasn't Australia, I'm told, been engaging it?
I can't speak to that at this point. I would have to check that specifically. I mean, there are countries up north that have urged their authorities to use it. Has been used in South America in some countries, and there is scientific evidence there. And as I said, our ministry may very well be looking at it.
We know that the hospitals, and they have catalogued them across the interpret of Jamaica, who are running out of space, and the term has come up now that they are being repurposed to various hospitals. Are we to be overly concerned now that we have international reports to show where the Americas are indeed the epicenter of the pandemic, and also that Jamaica's ranking is gone up to number 2? Is that rational? Is that statistically correct?
Well, from early on, this region, PAHO, has been really the region that had the highest burden per capita with COVID-19. A lot of that was driven by the experience in our neighbors to the north. In terms of what is happening with us now, our current surge is definitely of concern in terms of the total numbers of deaths. We have not been doing as badly as we could, and that has been because of measures taken early on, I think. But the fact is, we don't want this to get out of hand. We don't want this to get out of hand.
But
and
Dr.
we think
Manning,
ivermectin can help, but also
isn't it not already out of hand? This thing not out of hand long time.
Well, it depends on your definition.
But
could have been worse, and you always have to. We can't lose hope, Curtis.
Could have been better.
And I will never lose hope. But we'll never lose hope. It could have been better too.
But people must be concerned. People must be concerned.
I'll tell you what concerns me. The positivity rate.
Yes.
That we are now what, day number 9, day number 10, that we are past 20. And
I don't have the figures from yesterday. I haven't seen the update for today. But the positivity rate had gone up 20%, then 30%.
Right.
And the last couple of ones that I'd seen were 20-odd%. So high, but you have to look on the whole curve. What we have to aim to do is to bring down the positivity rate. That's what we have to do. And separate and apart from ivermectin, and when the vaccine comes, it still comes down to social distancing, wearing your mask properly, and hand sanitizing. That sounds boring, but that
no, it's
really
not boring, Dr. Manning. You are so right. Because it's not something, we can't just feel that we are safe if we just go and take the injection.
No, definitely not.
And I'll tell you what really stresses me. It's the truth. I'm being honest.
Yeah. Don't make it stress you out, because
that is also bad.
You have to, if you're a religious man, you pray, use different techniques to meditate, you drink a lot of fluids, you exercise.
I went downtown. Let me just tell you the story. I went downtown, and a man was approaching me with his mask under his chin. So I told him, no, please, no. You need, how many times have you been told to wear your mask? You know what he said to me?
What?
Mr. Myrie, this thing is a pandemic, not a pandemic.
I think we have to encourage people.
I was shocked when the man said to me, this thing is a pandemic. So he doesn't believe. There's so many Jamaicans who don't believe that this thing is serious enough.
Yes, they definitely have to educate people about it, and also though, you have to protect yourself, and is an important thing. Don't let this thing stress you out.
Right.
We are in a storm now, but we will get through it.
Okay.
Don't worry about it excessively.
Yeah.
Right.
Just let us all do what we have to do to get out of this crisis.
This from a well-noted Jamaican who was in the international news recently. He's asking what is going on in JA. Spoke to a friend today who lost his brother to COVID. He and his daughter caught it. He's dead. And when his daughter went to get tested, they tested her and sent her home, telling her she would get the results in 5 days. No question as to how she's getting home, who she lives with, what she should do in the next 5 days. Nothing. No contact tracing. His brother was a similar story. Went to get tested and he would get the results in 5 days. It took 7 to get the results and he died on the 8th day. Are we counseling the people properly, Doc?
Well, I think we are trying to counsel as many people as we can, but there are challenges. There are definite challenges. We have limited resources. We have limited personnel. We have limited beds. And that is why we are calling on the general public to do what they need to do, what we need to do, because it is in our hand. It is in our hand. We can bring down the numbers of COVID-19.
Quick question. Have we reached a stage where, like in the US, we send home people to die? They said they're actually choosing who lives and who dies.
I don't know where that is happening in the US.
And if we are not there, we might very well be close, since we are being told that
I
we
don't
need to
think
call
that is-
ahead before we
I
get to
don't-
the
well,
hospitals?
That is unprecedented, and people in society need to hear that call and realize that we need to do something. And the ministry wouldn't be saying that lightly. I can tell you that. The ministry wouldn't be taking that decision lightly. So we all need to look on this thing and do what we need to do, and it is in our hands.
All right, Doc, thank you ever so much.
And thanks for
All right,
always
take care.
engaging us here, Dr. Manning. You're certainly
Sure.
one who's always willing to speak to us. We thank you so much
right.
for this.
Take care.
Good,
and stay
good.
safe.
Right. Back with Real Chat, and it's the final segment. And as we
Started.
no, before we go there,
Yeah.
as we continue to emphasize, doctor says we ought not to use the word stress. Keep sharing, keep subscribing, and remember, support the program by contributing to the Cash App, $Real Chat. It's highlighted on the screen. The final segment, the final word. As how we started, as how we'll close. Saluting the legacy of the late Clarvis Joseph, former Vice President of the West Indies Cricket Board. Here's best friend Pedro Corbin, Regional Manager, Caribbean Catering for the Goddard Catering Group. He's the former Assistant Secretary for the Antigua Cricket Association and the former Secretary Treasurer for the Leeward Islands Cricket Association. Pedro, nice to have you.
Good evening, Curtis. It's nice to be here to speak on behalf of my fallen good friend,
Yes.
and all the best to all my good friends in Jamaica.
Good.
And wider field.
Tell us some of the stories, some of the experiences you have shared that speaks to a shining legacy, a sterling legacy that he has left.
Well, I think I would like to start by saying that I first met Clarvis in January 1984. I actually moved to Antigua only in November 1983, and he was one of the principal persons that drafted me into the Cricket Association executives almost immediately once I came here, and having found out that I was some person interested in cricket. And I know a lot has been said about Clarvis, very outspoken person, and that is so true. He has always been a very outspoken person. But, he's always been a person of action, integrity, and speak the truth to promote what is good for the Caribbean. And not only for Antigua, his native country, the one that he loves well, but Clarvis was a real Caribbean person. Over the many years, we've spoken immensely about his times in Jamaica, his times in Guyana, in particular where he met his longtime wife, Pat. As a matter of fact, he constantly reminds me from time to time that he also, I am married to a lady who is of Guyanese extract, by extension, and he always reminded me that he had taught her cousins in Berbice. Clarvis is a storyteller.
Yes,
So he's a person of many stories. But I think there's a lot of things that went on with Clarvis, and I would like to speak to, a lot I did with him was the cricket, although we were also involved in the business sector in terms of the Chamber of Commerce, where I actually acted as his treasurer while he was president of the Chamber of Commerce for 2 years in Antigua.
Right.
But just to give you a picture of the man, and I go back to 1990 when we were preparing for the test match Australia versus West Indies in Antigua. And those of you who would know Antigua, we had the recreation ground with players pavilion was not up to standard, having attained Test cricket status going back to 1981, I think it was. And Clarvis was talking to, he was not the president of the association then, but he was talking to the government, but we really need to upgrade this facility so that we can host Australia properly and that sort of thing, and start to stand with the larger countries in Jamaica, Barbados, Guyana, and those sort of things. And we were having a lot of static, according to Clarvis and his conversations, relaying back to us on the executive. And one night at the executive meeting, Clarvis said, guys, I'm going to pull down this stand tomorrow. I said, I mean tomorrow. He said, we're going to pull it down. As a matter of fact, we can pull it down starting tonight. I said, but how we can get it back up? He said, you know what? The government wants to have cricket playing in Antigua. It will get rebuilt. We left that meeting around 7 o'clock at night. Next morning, the ground, it was pulled down when we got there. And you know what? It was rebuilt in time for the test match. And that was one of the legacies of the man. He had a lot of conviction, and he put people on the spot. You know, he was like, do what you say you're going to do, because there's a lot of lip service being paid to, we want to do this for cricket, but we're not doing it. And we pulled down that ground. It was not our pavilion, Cricket Association, but we were responsible for hosting the game. And he made sure he got our mobilized to pull it down, and he said, it will be rebuilt. And we rebuilt it. Another incident we had, and this is going back to, I think, just after that, in 1992, 93. The recreation ground, as we all know, is home of football, it's home of carnival, and the Cricket Association has been the one that has always spent all the money to get it restored, back up to cricket level, and all sorts of stuff. And we had to do a complete relay of the ground. And Pakistan, I think it was Pakistan, was coming, 1993. And again, the static we were having, I think Clarvis was the president at that time. He said, well, you know what, Pedro, you're in charge of the ground. We need to resurface this entire ground. And we went to work. There's a pond very close to the recreation ground, and we discussed it that no one has tapped into it before. Got in contact with the fire service who was next door, and they ran pipes for us. We brought in all the topsoil, we ripped up the entire ground, brought in all the topsoil, and then we had water constantly, because everyone knows that Antigua is a place of drought. Mm-hmm. And so people were very concerned that if we do all this massive work, how are we going to get it ready without water? And that pond is always full. So we say, you know what, we have the water. And we started to do it. And I remember, and this is one that our cricket commentator, famous ex-West Indies cricketer, who shall remain nameless at this point in time, passed through Antigua at the time, maybe about 2 or 3 months, to see all this work going on, and went on the air and had the audacity to say that this ground will not be ready. He doesn't understand why the West Indies Cricket Board does not change the venue, because it will never be ready. But we had the last laugh. The ground was ready. It was pristine green, and the game went on very well. And I think that particular game, the very last day, was washed out. And we had the helicopter coming. If you remember, helicopter coming to try and dry the ground that day. Mm-hmm. But Clarvis reminded that same person who was doing commentary, you're the one who said that this ground could not have been ready. There were some people in Antigua who were calling for him to be even barred from coming into Antigua. But Clarvis, his statesperson is, he said, you know what? If we have a statement from a former Calypsonian in Antigua called Bullface, who just say, if you know, you know. And Clarvis' response to that was, he just didn't know. He was of us Antiguan people. And you would know, I saw some of your program, and you did remind people that he's a man that, speaks his mind.
Right.
And I remember Clarvis going up to that same gentleman and saying, maybe you owe us an apology. But, it is okay. We managed to show you that this small island Antigua, when we say we're going to do something, we are going to do it.
Let me ask you, Pedro. Pedro, have we lost some of that, all of that pluck? Where is it now in West Indies cricket?
I don't think we have any person like Clarvis in West Indies cricket today, to be quite honest with you. I think we've lost a sportsperson of that conviction who can really speak and deliver. It's all well and good. We have a lot of people who can speak and say what should be done. But I don't think we have the people who can deliver. And I think that has been lost with his legacy, not because of his passing at this point in time, but as he slowed down from West Indies cricket, I think a lot of that has been lost. And we need to have people, to go back to that. I mean, I have been very outspoken in my own ways in trying to on the well while Clarvis was president and even after to speak out against some of these things. But I cannot match that, to be quite honest with you. And I've not seen any person coming up to the stage that can match what Clarvis is doing. I mean, there's one person that comes to mind that I know does speak out. And I spoke to him briefly today. That is Zora Bartley. I think he's one of these persons that can probably try to take up that sort of mantle. But to have that sort of presence within the Caribbean, you also have to have the background that Clarvis would have had in terms of not only representing Antigua and Leeward Islands, but West Indies cricket at the administrative level and also at the business level. You need some person that has that sort of background that when you speak, people will listen. I mean, when Clarvis spoke, prime ministers listened. It was touching to me on the day of his passing when I passed by his home within the hour to hear that P.J. Patterson had already called. I think that speaks volumes to what and who Clarvis Joseph was.
My friend, we have lost a giant.
We have really lost a giant. We really lost a giant, And I'm sure that I didn't hear Celeste this afternoon, but I'm sure he spoke about the move that Clarvis orchestrated to bring the West Indies Cricket Board at the time office to Antigua.
Yes, you need to listen to him.
I've heard him before speak. I was slow, although that was after the time when Clarvis.
I'll tell you what, right? And I'm glad you said that because we like to bother a producer who gives us the ugly eye from time to time. One, Mr. Billy Yap, because we work him very hard. But you're his best friend. And from last week, we started to send our programs out on WhatsApp. So we'll certainly send this evening's program out, but because we have to send it to Sir Lester Bird and persons like yourself and others, right? We have one to send to our dear friend Andrew Mason, and to post it in his chat room as well. So we will be sending out copies of this afternoon's edition because Sir Lester Bird was quite stirring, and Carlisle Powell also spoke at length and really gave us some good stories about not just his conviction, but his savvy as an administrator, as you have been talking about. And as Sir Lester said, what you guys did to produce the surge of cricketers in Antigua.
And crossing political lines in the name of cricket.
And crossing political lines in the name of cricket, right?
But that was the legacy of Clarvis, not only in cricket. It doesn't matter whether it was cricket or not. Once it was for the advancement of Antigua first and the Caribbean, Clarvis is one person that was always there for it. He didn't matter who was in power, nothing. And if you thought that you were doing, I heard you say...
You have 1 minute remaining on this call.
In the View article that was in the paper on Tuesday, he spoke a few ratted words, and to use the Jamaican term, and that was Clarvis, how he was, just looking after the benefit of the whole Caribbean region. And I think that is something that was very, very important. I will just share one other thing with you, but I don't know how much more time
in 10 seconds, because we now have to go.
Right. My first meeting with Clarvis as Secretary-Treasurer at the Leeward Islands Cricket Board, where everyone was talking about the insularity within the West Indies cricket and against the Leewards and West Windwards, we saw it being practiced within the Leewards at our very first meeting. And Clarvis stamped it up and said, gentlemen, we have no time for this. We moving forward, and we're going to move Leeward cricket to another level. And that is exactly what he did. And we became the best reporting country during 1995 to 1997 when he was there to the West Indies Cricket Board. We did it.
And on that score, we have to go. We have to go. We have to go. Thanks, everyone, for engaging us in this afternoon's edition of Real Chat. It was quite a journey. It's a journey we took this evening, right? On highlighting the legacy of Clarvis Joseph on highlighting some of the burning issues of crime in terms of replacement gangsters in our schools, the whole issue of dancehall and violence, right? So passionately addressed by Dr. Dennis Howard and Professor Basil Wilson, right? And as always, Dr. Andrew Manning, giving us more to consider about the COVID-19 pandemic, a man who graciously has always decided to be a part of the program and has always welcomed us, right, to speak about this pressing problem and what we still need to do. We still need to wear a mask and sanitize and just keep and be safe. Please keep safe. Please be safe. Join us next week, next Thursday, for more chat, because this is real chat. Later, next week.